If you were watching TV in the early 70s, you might have noticed a worrying trend. Your favorite TV shows, or at least the ones in a rural setting, started disappearing one by one. Bonanza, Petticoat Junction, immensely popular programs were suddenly gone. So why were all these iconic shows, many of whom still boasted sky-high ratings,
That's the thing about possum innards. He's just as good as second date.
unceremoniously dumped? Well, like most things in life, you gotta follow the money. While these rural-themed shows did have millions of viewers each week, their audiences skewed overwhelmingly older, and advertisers weren't exactly happy about this. Because who buys the most refrigerators in this country? It's not little cute grandmas settling in to watch Lassie. People aged 25 to 35 are the demographic that advertisers covet, and these young people just weren't watching the country-centric shows. So under great pressure from the bigwigs with the money bags, the TV studios, especially CBS, caved, and what became known as the rural purge commenced.
When I think of what they've done, I feel like a pink possum in a dry goods store.
I'm Nostalgic Nick for Do You Remember, and today we're looking at the best shows to fall victim to this rural purge. And we're under the pressure from the bigwigs with the money bags too, so be sure to hit the like button for us and subscribe to our channel. But now, let's get purgy. The Beverly Hillbillies. The first show on this list, for me, is the most surprising, because The Beverly Hillbillies was one of the most popular shows of the 1960s. The iconic rags to riches story tells the tale of the Clampett clan, rising from the depths of the Ozarks after oil is discovered on their property, and the family became millionaires overnight and hightailed it to Southern California. Of course, these hicks don't know much about city living, and their fish out of water situation leads to much hilarity.
Fine, Granny, we'll commence plowing tomorrow.
But this is Beverly Hills. Dirt is dirt.
Which audiences genuinely loved. At one point during its run, an astonishing 57 million people a night tuned in to watch the hijinks of Jed, Jethro, and company. But even being rated in the top 20 TV shows for 8 of its 9 seasons wasn't enough to save the Beverly Hillbillies. And in 1971, the Clampetts got the axe. Lassie. Wait a second, not Lassie. Surely the Purge wouldn't be heartless enough to cancel the cutest and most helpful animal on TV. Well, the Purge has no feelings, my friends, and cares not for our sentiments.
What have you got to complain about?
Lassie was a modern fairy tale that followed the adventures of the eponymous rough collie and her companions, both human and animal. Generally, someone would get into a bit of trouble, such as falling down a well or being cornered by a bear, and Lassie would rush in to save the day. There was invariably a happy ending, with all problems solved in an easy 22 minutes. By the early 70s, Lassie had been on air for more than a decade and a half, and the show is still the 5th longest running US primetime television show in history. But even that fact was no match for the mighty Purge. And by 1973, the beloved collie was off the air. Mayberry RFD. Ah, Mayberry, North Carolina. The most idyllic small town in America, where Andy Taylor patrolled the streets keeping everyone safe. And America fell so in love with Mayberry while watching the Andy Griffith Show that even after Griffith and on-screen son Ron Howard left the sitcom, millions of people tuned in to watch the show's spin-off Mayberry RFD, which kept pretty much the same premise of a widower raising a young son.
Gee, Pa.
Too much salt, huh?
And most of the original townspeople made appearances. This continuation and piggyback helped Mayberry become a massive hit right off the bat. And all 3 seasons of this show were very popular. But the Purge comes for us all in the end. And even quaint little Mayberry was not immune. Mayberry RFD was canceled in 1971, and no longer could we peer into the lives of this small town utopia. Petticoat Junction.
Come ride the little train that is rolling down the tracks to the junction.
Also existing in the extended Beverly Hillbillies universe, Petticoat focuses on the rural Shady Rest Hotel, which is run by widowed Kate Bradley and her 3 daughters, Betty Jo, Bobby Jo, and Billy Jo. The women have to deal with the shiftlessness of their lazy but likable Uncle Joe, and try to keep the Hooterville Cannonball, an 1890s vintage steam-driven train, from being shut down. Petticoat Junction took place in Hooterville, the same fictional town that another hit rural sitcom, Green Acres, also took place. And characters from the Beverly Hillbillies also made appearances, but despite very good ratings, Petticoat Junction fell before the might of the Purge and was canceled in 1970. But if you want to take the Hooterville Cannonball to the Shady Rest, we have a great deep dive for you to check out next. Gunsmoke.
Gunsmoke.
Now, if there was any show that might have escaped the jaws of the Purge, you would assume it would have been Gunsmoke, and the iconic Western drama almost did just that, lasting all the way till 1975. Gunsmoke focused on Marshal Matt Dillon as he tried to keep the peace in Dodge City, Kansas during the Wild West era. The show had a darker tone and strove to illustrate the realities of life on the frontier. And boy, did audiences love it for a very long time. By the time the Purge caught up with Gunsmoke, the show had been on the air for 20 years. At that time, a record for a primetime scripted drama, and had 635 scripted episodes. A record only very recently passed by The Simpsons.
Can't let you break my record.
Gunsmoke started in 1955. And only 3 shows that premiered in the 1960s were still on the air when it was canceled. But as we know, the Purge is almighty and relentless, and eventually even Gunsmoke had to go. Green Acres.
Land spreading out so far and wide. Keep Manhattan, just give me that countryside.
After the Beverly Hillbillies struck oil in the ratings, show creator Paul Henning went right back to the country for more, creating Petticoat Junction. And then in 1965, Green Acres was born. And just like its sister sitcoms, it became a massive hit. The sitcom follows the adventures of wealthy New York attorney Oliver Douglas and his glamorous wife Lisa, after they abandoned the glitz of the big city and bought a farm in the middle of nowhere. The show was unique in that it incorporated elements of surrealism and satire, with running jokes, recurring visual gags, and the characters repeatedly breaking the fourth wall. Despite these more modern elements of storytelling, Green Acres was swept along in the tsunami that was the rural Purge, and was canceled in 1971. Bonanza. The immensely popular Western focuses on the Cartwrights, a family of bachelor cowboys who run a ranch in the vicinity of Lake Tahoe. The show was atypical at the time for a Western, as the plot rarely focused on the West, and was more often about how Father Ben and his 3 very different sons, Adam, Hoss, and Little Joe, cared for one another. The show also tackled very difficult social issues of the day, taking a very progressive view each time. But despite these forward-thinking ideas, Bonanza was not able to fight off the Purge and was canceled in 1973. Lucky for you, we have a great throwback to revisit the Cartwright clan. There they are, some of the most iconic shows of all time that were all shelved before their times by greedy advertisers looking to sell more products. The rural Purge stole from us some of the most beloved TV shows of all time. So I guess we just have to be thankful for reruns. So tell us, how many of these shows did you used to watch? Do you remember being shocked by their cancellation? Or had they run past their heyday? Let us know in the comments below. We read every one. And be sure to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to our channel. Otherwise, the rural Purge might come for you next. As always, from all of us here at Do You Remember, thank y'all for watching.